Hi guys, welcome to the Life and Fight of a podcast. I'm joined by my co-host here, Jake, and today we're joined by Andy Hardwick, also known as Brotherhood Performance. We're just going to sort of get into a bit of a discussion, talk about a bit of S&C, Andy's story, and go into sort of what he's been up to. So how have you been since lockdown started, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Just keeping myself ticking over, really. I guess like everybody is. Nothing special, really. There's only so much we can do, isn't there, really? So just been trying to keep myself sane more than anything and keep things ticking over.
Yeah.
So just 1 second, just in case people, I presume if people are listening to this, they know what S&C is, but if they don't, it means strength and conditioning. It's not some weird fetish. Just making sure, because you never know who's listening to this stuff.
Oh, very true. Yeah, I didn't even think of that, to be fair.
We'll save that for the podcast.
Yeah, that's the after 8 p.m. one, that one. So like you say, you've got a pretty strong client base, haven't you? And you've got some pretty good athletes on your sort of roster at the moment. Like, have you done anything different with them since we've gone into lockdown?
Nothing's really changed much. Obviously, the environment, the only thing that's changed is the environment, really. The goals always stay the same. Obviously, the sort of programs that we're putting in place and the things we're trying to implement change a little bit, and the sort of outcome for those things change. But the overall sort of goal is the same. It's just to produce faster, stronger, fitter, more robust like grapplers and athletes. Really, there's nothing. Like I said, the process might be different. The environment changes a little bit, but the overall outcome is the same. It may be dependent on access to kit, certain things like that, the main determining factors, but the overall process always stays the same. We just want guys to be fitter, faster, stronger, and more like generally prepared to grapple more than anything. And that's sort of the route we've been taking. It's just trying to use this time to build certain things that we probably wouldn't have time to work on when we're sort of training full time. It's a good opportunity to build some work capacity, things like that. So one of the things another coach said to me, I was chatting with another coach, and he sort of said it's like we're just building the horsepower of the athletes at the minute. We're just getting their ability to sort of be as well prepared to return to training as we physically can. I think it's the sort of outlook on it all changed quite a lot when we were looking at sort of like 3 weeks of isolation. Everyone was like quick to jump on the bandwagon and be like, oh, this is what we're going to do. This is going to be the best thing to do. But we've been in isolation. I don't even know how long we've been in now, like 10 weeks.
I think so, yeah.
Anyone's guess is as good as mine.
What day is it again?
Yeah. But, so the perspective changed a little bit. So it's just been trying to get guys just moving, keeping them as best in shape as we can and as best prepared to return to the mats as possible.
Oh, mega. Like, so we had one of you guys on the other week, Tyrese Cunliffe.
Yeah.
Are there any sort of other guys you got working with at the moment who's sort of almost ready to sort of go and compete or want?
Yeah. So obviously Shane Curtis is like an active, like really, really active purple belt. Sam Quinn, he's just like returned off the back of an injury, so he's pretty much getting there, good to go as soon as we're back. Let me try and think of what
Interesting way how we got that injury.
Oh yeah, fucking knobheads, mate. I mean, that's the fucking conversation. If you want to have a conversation about that,
we can talk. I'm happy to talk about that.
We'll keep names out of it, but
fucking, I'll name the company. I don't give a yeah, so like we've got like good guys all around a similar rank. Obviously Tyrese is a bit younger. Libby Genge as well. Libby's like a young little killer. So she's fucking had the best like training environment. Like her dad, Paul's like got like a home gym set up. We've got mats at home. So like she's like fucking raring to go. But like yeah, so and we used to work with like Matty Holmes and things like that.
Yeah.
So a good like, especially around the north, like a really good core group of individuals that they're all like regularly active and they're all pretty much just chomping at the bit to get going now.
So how does it work with your clientele? Is it all your clientele is basically for the performance side, or do you just do the normal Joe blogs? You just want to get a bit fit as well?
Yeah, so I mean, I work with a wide range of people. So I have like general population clients. They're just like nothing to do with jiu-jitsu or MMA or anything to do with combat sports. They're just health, fitness, weight loss, the usual sort of general training goals. Then obviously we've got the sort of more performance side of things. But in the performance side of things, I've got guys that are not regularly active, that are just looking to be a bit more healthier, a bit stronger, train a bit better. Make sure they're not getting hurt, things like that. And then you have got like the peak performance guys that are looking to be as successful at competition as possible. So it's a wide range.
Yeah, how do your sort of methods differ then? Sort of like if you were to work with sort of Gen Pop and then
I mean,
athlete.
To be honest, they're very similar, but obviously the overall goal changes a little bit. So if you're taking a general population individual or somebody who is just like a hobbyist grappler, then their sort of processes are very similar. We want to basically just get them a bit stronger, get them a bit fitter, make them feel a bit better. Like I said, try and keep them sort of as pain-free as possible. And the process is very similar. Like I said, think a couple of things might tweak and change, like certain exercise selections based on whatever they're trying to achieve, and their sort of current level of training experience or capacity to train. For the competitor, obviously, it's a bit more structured, should I say, in terms of the fact that we not necessarily have like prerequisites to meet, but there are certain things that we need to get better. Like if you're going to be relatively successful, you're going to have to get stronger. You're probably going to have to put a bit of muscle mass on your frame. Like there are certain things that you just have to do more than anything. Not that I like force guys to do it, but like there's a certain conversation where it's like, look, if you want to be successful at this, there's certain things that you're going to have to do to achieve that. I mean, the current ADCC, like the last year's ADCC was the biggest example of that. If you want to be at the top level, look, you have to just take a look at these guys to see what they're doing. So there's a certain point where it's like, all right, all this like sort of technique work and flow rolling, that shit's going to have to go out the window, and you're just going to have to fucking get your ass down and just hammer away for a period of time, really.
So the like I say, to touch back on the clientele, like how did you get? Obviously, we'll touch on how you got into martial arts generally, anyway. But how did you sort of start thinking, right? I can, because I understand the sport. How can I start to build what I know from my strength conditioning background into this? When did that sort of come about, and who were your sort of first clients to sort of trial that on?
So I mean, it all sort of links into one. So I've like always been relatively decent, competitive in terms of sport. I've been playing sports since I was like 4. I was like a pretty decent rugby league player, but it all stems from the fact that I was probably never good enough to actually like make it my full-time career pathway. Like, I mean, I'm like 5'9", so I was never going to be a professional rugby player. And it suddenly became like, right, if I can't do it, how can I help somebody achieve the things that they want to achieve? How can I guide somebody and make sure that they probably don't make the mistakes that I've made? So that was sort of the basic underlying of it, but it was from there just developed and pushed as the same way as you would develop in a sport. Read books, watched lectures. Obviously, I've got a semi-decent education, so went through the sort of normal education pathways and just developed it from there, like built from experience. And then when I suddenly decided that I wanted to sort of push on from just being a personal trainer, I wanted to take my sort of career and develop it through that way and sort of go more specific through strength conditioning. It was just like you'd progress in any career. You sort of take the time to invest in yourself. I spent like probably thousands on courses and going to seminars and, like I said, books and lectures, and you just progress it through sort of CPD and build upon it that way. And then once you're sort of ingrained in the sport and you understand the principles behind sort of strength and conditioning measures and like physiology and biomechanics, and you can just progress it through there, and you can take it and apply it to any sport. Like I've worked with obviously predominantly combat athletes, but we've worked with, I say we, like it's anybody else, fucking me.
I do that.
Yeah. I do it all the time. Triathletes, like tennis players, squash players. So once you sort of understand the principles behind the things that you're trying to implement, it all looks very similar. It's just how you justify it that makes the difference. You might make little tweaks here and there, but fundamentally, like there's, I mean, what's that saying? There's many ways to skin a cat, but like it fundamentally all looks the same. It's just the justification behind it that makes the difference.
Okay, so have you sort of focused primarily on trying to work with combat athletes, or is it just sort of the clientele that have tended to come your way recently?
No. Combat athletes is the thing I want to do and things I want to work for. I think the scope of sort of physical preparation in the combat world is very poor generally. So, I mean, like I said this quite a lot, like as much as I'm a strength conditioning coach, one of my main factors is education. And like, that's what I like predominantly use like social media for, is the education and trying to just push that message of there are better ways of doing things. I think it's getting better. There are a good core group of guys that are sort of on the same pathway, trying to sort of push the same message. But that's fundamentally what I want to do is help the combat community. I think one of my main goals is to have like, not just for me, but like I think obviously when everyone talks about Jiu Jitsu and MMA and S&C and whatever it may be, everyone always looks to the States. But I think there's a good core of guys in the UK now, and I'd love the UK to be like a bit of a hub for it. Do you know what I mean? And really help the UK push that level, both of competitor, because we are, whether you like to admit it or not, a bit slightly sort of countries in terms of talent probably, but general knowledge as well. I think I want to try and push the level of the country and improve the overall scene really.
So that's a good point. I've literally just wrote on my notes a question I wanted to ask you if I forgot it. I was going to say that obviously you want to broaden the UK and Britain and sort of compare them to what the Americans are doing. Is anyone that you sort of look up to or anyone that you think is doing it right alongside you? One person that comes to my mind is Yanis Fleming.
Okay.
I presume you know him. He works with the higher tier, sort of, from what I know anyway.
Yeah.
Anyone like him, do you ever see what he does and try and use it, or vice versa?
Yeah, so there's the UK is great. There's some really good guys coming through. So one of the OGs of sort of strength conditioning for combat sports is a guy called William Wayland. He runs a gym called Powering Through down south somewhere, and he's like the real like godfather of sort of in the UK anyway, or he's the sort of a big go-to name that people go to. So he's a real like an aspiring figure. But there's like Chris Meyer. Have you heard of Chris Meyer?
That name does ring a bell.
Ring a bell, yeah.
Yeah, so Chris is like, I think he's retired. Well, he keeps threatening he's retiring, but I don't know if he is. So Chris was like a decent MMA fighter, but he's like a strength conditioning coach down in Birmingham. He's really good. I mean, he does all my programming. So he's a brilliant guy. Ben Robson down in Wales. So Ben's like, I mean, fucking hell, he's getting a PhD, so he's pretty switched on. He runs Unorthodox Performance. Like the co-side of like Unorthodox Nutrition, I think. So he's brilliant as well. He's really switched on. Reece Jones, he's another one in Wales. He works with Mason Jones, the current Cage Warriors champ.
Yeah.
And Henry Pike's a guy down in Portsmouth. I think he's down in Portsmouth. And he's brilliant as well. So there is a really good like core group of guys that are sort of on the come up and just trying to push the ceiling of performance training for combat sports.
Nice. So sort of you touched on the guy that sort of works in your S&C programming as well. That was going to be one of the questions there, sort of like managing sort of the athletes that you've got and the clientele that you've got. Like, where do you sort of find time to do your own programming, or like you said, you've got somebody else? Sort of
yeah, so Chris does all mine. So about, how long has it been now? Probably about 12 months ago. I just found that in between sort of training clients and being on the mats and things like that, I was writing programming and I just wasn't fucking sticking to it, to be honest with you. Like, it just, you always bias things that you like and you don't like, and you tend to find that you're a bit more relaxed when you're doing it yourself. So I've been following Chris for a while. We sort of had similar principles and ideas about training. So I just shot him a message. I was like, do you fancy just looking after my programming? And it's been great, really. It just takes one stress out of there. And obviously he's a really smart guy, really switched on. So it's a good sort of network to have.
Brilliant.
Sorry.
Go on, Jake.
The great point there is that you've sort of threw your ego out the window and just said, I'm not doing it right. I'm not giving even myself justice. So sorry, domino effect to my own clients.
Yeah.
I'm just going to increase myself better and go higher and look to someone that I look up to. I think that's quite a way to sort of look at you as a person, to know that you're willing to better yourself by pushing yourself, and then the clients in turn will get better from there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as much as I'm a coach, I'm a competitor as well. So I want as to be as successful as I can on the mat. So I think hiring a coach is such a big asset to anyone, even if you're a hobbyist, but especially if you're a competitor, because you need somebody to talk to. You need somebody who's gonna push you when you need to be pushed, and make sure that you're doing the right things. And when I started working with Chris, I was like, look, mate, I'm just going to pretend like I'm Joe Bloggs here. I don't know anything, and just tell me exactly what you want me to do, and I'll just follow it to a T. And I'll just give you as much feedback as I can, and try and be as perfect of a client as I would like to achieve. Do you know what I mean? And like you said, there was never any bias about it. It was just I like what he did. I like the sort of principles he stood behind. And like I said, I followed him for a while, and I was just like, yeah, you can take. I like what you're doing. You just take full reins of it. Tell me what to do, and I'll follow it to as best I can to a T.
Nice.
That makes sense. Like, sort of, it is like kind of like taking a big bite out of the eagle, that sort of passing on that job to almost somebody else and sort of giving it their hands, when, like I said, as a competitor, you'd be quite delicate with your own performance and everything.
Yeah.
So it's quite a big step, that, to pass that on to somebody and essentially give them the reins for it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think you've got to be in this game. You've got to be eager to learn from various different people, and I think the more you sort of enclose yourself into certain methodologies or certain, you trap yourself behind certain things, and the less chance you have. Like, the more knowledge you have, the more experience you have on your side, the better your overall game is going to be. So if you can bring somebody in who's going to take what the value of your overall sort of you as a person and elevate that through whatever it means it may be, whether you might look at getting like a mental coach, you might chat to somebody who sort of specializes in the psychological side of things. It might be a strength conditioning coach. It might be somebody who is a nutrition coach, whatever it may be. I think it rather than trying to force it, everything, you see a lot of guys just they sort of like pick stuff off social media and all right, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, and it's just like, I mean, coaching, it's not that much of an expense. Like, if it's something that you want to be successful with and you want to make this sort of sport your life, then I think the earlier you get started, the better. And that's like, I mean, when we were like, obviously, like you said, like Tyrese and like Libby, who are both young, that if you can have somebody not necessarily at that age say, oh, this is what you have to do, but it's sort of trying to guide them and say, this is probably not the best decision, this is a good decision, or you're bad at this, let's work on this. As you sort of mature and develop into a more established adult, should we say, then you've got not only the knowledge, but you've got the trust that if you need to ask a question, you can ask somebody a question, and there's somebody outside of that initial circle of people, whether it be in your gym, whether it be like your coaches, that you can be like, what do you think of this? And someone will give you an honest answer.
So let's go right back to the beginning then. When, obviously, you said that you were playing sports from a young age, just sort of go through the timeline of when things started to change and what you was into, and then when you transitioned to different things.
Yeah. So, like I said, played pretty much anything when I was a kid. One of them kids that was just good at every sport, really. But my main thing was rugby league. So I played roller hockey for like the Northwest, and then I stopped doing that because my rugby was getting more serious. So played rugby league till I was about, well, I had a quite severe knee injury when I was like 16. So if you're not familiar with like scouting protocols, when you're like a rugby league player, chances are if you're going to play professional rugby, you'll roughly have an idea by the time you're 16.
Right.
Because that's when the main scouting protocols take place. And I unfortunately tore my ACL when I was like 15. So that put me out for a bit. And sort of obviously like 16, 17, you discovered women and alcohol and stuff like that. So that sort of took a back step. I went back playing in college, so I played for another 2 years at college. But when I went to uni, I was sort of done with rugby, to be honest with you. It was, I mean, people think jiu-jitsu is hard, but fuck me, I don't know how people play it as a hobby. You just battered. But yeah, so obviously the injury risk was massive. So I was like, you know what, I'm done with this. I don't want to. And like a couple of other things, I had quite a few severe head injuries and stuff like that. So went to university, spent 3 years at university getting fat and smoking weed and shit like that. So sort of, I was still lifting at that point and like getting into powerlifting. Dabbled in a little bit of CrossFit because it was the sort of thing to do at the time. Realised I didn't really like being out of breath, so I sacked that off. And then, yeah, so it developed through that. I didn't really know where I wanted to go. So I come out of university with a degree, fucked around for 3 years. And then when I got back from university, I was like out of shape and I was strong and I was big, but I didn't like how I used to be like athletic and sporting. And I was like, I need to sort of change that. So I boxed a little bit when I was younger. So I was like, right, I'll go back to boxing. Boxed for 18 months, 2 years. Again, realised I didn't like getting hit in the head anymore. So I was looking, I was actually, say that again.
Where did you box?
There's like in where I live in Chorley, there's quite a good sort of circle of like amateur boxing gyms. I mean, I never fought competitively. I was just a punching bag really, but so there was like this gym called Dave's Gym, which is like a local boxing gym to us. So we just used to go there. Again, not very good at boxing. Probably one of the few things I've never really been that good at. I mean, I'm short and stocky and I've got shit feet, so I just used to get hit loads. But so yeah, so I did that, and then I actually was like, I don't really like this, but I'd wrestled with rugby, obviously. So I was like, oh, I'll give this a go. Unfortunately, one of my current training partners, Jamie Shattuck, was like, had shared the AlleyCat's first like session. He'd been down to the first session, and I'd been looking for a jiu-jitsu gym because I'd like watched the UFC and things like that, and I fancied giving that a go. But the closest gyms were like Preston, and I couldn't be arsed trekking to Preston every day. So luckily Neil had opened the gym, and then I'd just give him a call and went down that week and never looked back really. And that's what sort of set me off on jiu-jitsu.
What year was that?
So I've been training just about 4.5 years. So yeah, 2000, and it'll be the end of 2016. So started like end of November, start of December 2016, I think. My maths isn't great.
That sounds like a pretty good athletic career that so far, though. And you've had your good amount of success with your grappling as well.
Yeah.
So, are there any sort of notable moments that you remember from sort of your own competitive grappling up to now?
I mean, anytime you win's nice, isn't it? But I mean, obviously, Grapple Fest is a big one. So I've been on Grapple Fest a few times. I pretty much bar the British Open and Abu Dhabi. I've like medalled at all the comps. So I've got like Grappling Industries, won that. Won an IBJJF, won a Grapple Fest. I've won an Empire, Jake, for you, mate. Won a 24/7. So bar like the Grand Slam and the Open, which I've never beat, the British Open that I've never done. I've pretty much medalled at every single comp in like all the main sort of comps in the UK. So every time you win, like I said, it's quite a nice moment. The biggest ones, obviously, is Grapple Fest is massive. We did last year. We went and did like a nations comp. So there was like England versus Ireland. Yeah, Grapple Kings did it. So that was pretty cool because we got given the England kit and stuff like that. So that was quite a memorable moment. That was quite fun. So, I mean, I just like anything really. Like I said, anytime you win, it's a nice experience, and it's just good to get involved. Really, I just like competing more than anything. Nothing overly stands out too much. But any success is good success in my view.
No, fair. So, like, back to your sort of strength and conditioning and things as well. Like, when did like Brotherhood start, and how did you sort of come about the name?
So Brotherhood originally started because like I was quite fortunate. So where I sort of PT'd for general population, there was a guy that worked there who was quite successful as an online coach. So I saw him as a bit of I want to do that. What he's doing, he seemed successful with it. He was making decent money from it. I was like, I fancy giving him a go at that. So Brotherhood started because I wanted to sort of, I didn't really know where I was going to go with it. So when it first started, it was like, a bit of general population stuff, bit of jiu-jitsu stuff. And then after a while, I was like, do you know what? I want to, when I sort of realized that I wanted to go into strength conditioning, I was like, right, I'm going to knuckle down with this and just focus primarily on combat sports. But the fundamental idea was I wanted to sort of create, it sounds like cringy, but like a bit of a community. So it was sort of like the guys that I was working with, so like Shane and Sam and myself, like we're all similar weights, we're all at the same rank, we all compete at the same competitions, and we've all, like, some of us have met in competition and things like that. So it was about I don't give a shit really what team you're from or who you fought or who you are fighting. It was about like that community and having guys there that if you were like a client or part of the Brotherhood sort of banner, then we were there for each other, if that makes sense. And it was a bit away from the strength conditioning side of things. I like the fact that it was sort of the communal side of things as well. Like, it was guys that we could look after each other as well. They were on the team. Everyone sort of knew each other relatively well, whether it's just through social media or what have you, but like build a bit of a community. Yeah. And at the time, I wasn't too sure when I first started it that I wanted it to be like Andrew Hardwick coach. So I was just like, I'll just call it Brotherhood. Obviously, that like is a bit communal. It's similar to like combat sports, in it, like Brotherhood, like sort of thing. So, funnily enough, I'm not a massive fan of the name now. I sort of wish I'd done something else, but I've sort of stuck with it now, and I'm a bit stubborn, so I refuse to change it. So.
It's strange when you create something, and maybe you've both been a part of this, when you're creating your logo for your design or whatever, and you've seen the building blocks of how you got there. You sort of go back and you go, I don't really. I'm the same with the Empire logo now, and a lot of people say they like it, they think it works, it's clean. Whereas because I've seen how it was built, I'm like, nah, it could be better. I can't do this with it. Same with Grapple Nation, same with Sub North, same with the UKFC logo. I'm being honest, I don't like it. I didn't create it. But what? Obviously, coming up with a name, that's a hard thing. I went for a million different ones. Is any other name? Same question for you, Simon, that you came up with rather than Hive and Brotherhood with you. And if you could change it, what would you change it to? Even if it's just hindsight.
To be honest, if I was to change it, I probably wouldn't change the actual name. It'd probably just be myself as a coach. It'd be like Andy Hardwick coaching, for example, or whatever it may be. And just make it a bit more personal rather than sort of business orientated. Yeah. But the only good thing about having it business related is eventually when I sort of progress and so maybe get my own facility, things like that, then I've got a business identity behind it. Exactly. So that's the only sort of good side behind it. And like I said, I'm a bit stubborn now. So even though I think it's a bit shit, I'm just like refuse to not make it work. So
it's weird though, because I think Brotherhood is a great name, and like the reasons you picked it is clear. It makes complete sense. So, but I can see your mindset of why. Sam, what about you?
I'm in agreement. I love the name Brotherhood. But yeah, no, like for me, the coming up with a name for like Hive, and that was all sort of about, because I want it to be like Manchester.
Yeah.
But I didn't want it to be sort of overly sort of Manchester. So if we did move, we'd be able to keep the name. So then it's sort of like the worker bee. Yeah, and bees come from a Hive, and it just sort of evolved from that.
Do you know that's the first time that's actually clicked why it's called Hive? And now you said that, it's fucking class. That's a great idea. Like, I just thought it was a name. I was just like, oh, he's picked Hive. Now you've said that, it's fucking boss. Like, it's class.
So I think it's just sort of, it was like an internal conversation that we had, and then it just sort of came from there. And I'm sort of like, I'm happy with the logo and the name and stuff. For me, it was with my personal training stuff is the coach by Sai. I'm like, I like it, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
I'm sort of, it's there now, and I'm like, I've just got to stick with it.
Run with it, aren't you? I think like you change it too much and people can't keep up, so you just stuck with whatever you pick, aren't you? Really?
That was my problem with. Obviously, Sub North was always small, obviously short for Submission. Mission North, obviously for Manchester and stuff. But then, obviously, when I sort of moved away from Fighting Fit, and then I went to create my own, I created Grapple Nation. I'm still in love with that name. It's my favourite thing that I've ever done.
Yeah.
It was just circumstances and people getting involved and they shouldn't have got involved, and it would have been too much red tape when I could have fought and won and stuff like that. I had to change it to Empire, and I still love the name Empire. I prefer Empire rather than Empire Grappling, but I think now it's at a point where people understand when someone just says Empire, they know what it is. You said 24/7 before, you don't need the BJJ side. But obviously, it needs to have Empire Grappling for what it is. But I do miss having Grapple Nation because I think it was at a stage where it was ready to bloom, like Empire is at the minute. But, I would love to bring it back even as a one-off at one point, but I think that'd be too much red tape because I just love the name.
First comp I ever did was Grapple Nation.
Which one?
Oh, fuck knows. I don't know. I got DQ'd though in my first fight.
I wasn't Rafi, was I?
No. It was Carl Casey.
I knew you were going to say that.
Because he's one of them ones. He's very happy just to throw the X up in it.
Honestly, still to this day, I've still got a grudge.
You know what? A lot of people do hold grudges with Carl.
So I love him though as well. He's such a funny guy.
You know what the funny thing is, and Carl knows I work obviously closer with Carl now because he sorts out my staff for my events and stuff. But at first, before I even met him, he's a keyboard warrior. I couldn't stand him. He annoyed the fuck out of me. And then at the events, I was getting complaints similar to what you just said about DQing and stuff like that. And then obviously got to know him a bit more and the way his mind worked. And he was just uber professional, OTT sometimes. Seen him disqualify kids. And I'm like, dude, relax. Relax. It's just kids. Like, what was it? I can't remember what it was, but it was like a round robin thing. And this guy dominated 2 kids. And the second one, he probably lifted him like, say, 4 inches off the floor. And then dropped the guy. The guy just sort of let go and it's a bit hard. It's like disqualification slam. And I could see it, but I just thought, fucking kids.
That's what I got DQ'd for. So I've gone to like double unders and like gone to like stack him and lift him. And as I've stacked him, he's just come down on the ground. He literally come off the floor about this much. And he DQ'd me for slamming. It's
like them people that when you first start training stuff and you do like judo falls and stuff like that, you learn to fall. It's like if anyone can perfect that, just do that in a match and you'll keep on progressing.
It is what it is, isn't it? But it was good though back then because obviously you had the repercharge. Is it repercharge? Repercharge match, the second match.
We still do it at Empire. It's
do you?
Yeah, it's the sort of a losers. I guess you don't really see it now because you're winning a lot more. It's a thing where I will be honest, my staff hate it because it makes the day longer. I think as a competitor, and I created this for a competitor, that I want the people to, even if they lose in 10 seconds, to sort of get a second run, even if it doesn't progress to anything, just to sort of get the mat time, make sure it's money's worth, get the experience. And there's not a massive percentage, maybe 10, 15, 20% where they like the knockout, they look like the sudden death. And I do get that side as well. But I think if you are spending the money, I think you should at least try and get some mat time. You might lose both in 10 seconds, but at least you've been in there and sort of got the energy and stuff.
I think it's big, me, for like, especially like white belt and the blue belts. I think it's such a massive thing when you've got guys that aren't used to competing. It can be such a dampening effect. Like when you, like you said, you do go onto the mat and you do get caught quick or you get DQ'd because you don't know the rules exactly. And you get that second opportunity. I think it can be, I mean, like from my perspective, I'd been training like 3 months at that point. First match was like winning the match, got DQ'd, and then went on to sub the guy in my second match. So obviously your confidence is boosted from that. So if it was your first competition and you've gone in and you're a bit unsure whether you actually want to do this, having that second match can be a massive sort of confidence booster. And from like a coaching side of things, you want guys to have as much mat experience at lower belts anyway. So I'm a big fan of it personally. I think one of the good things I like about grappling industries is the round robin format, because then you're just getting matches, aren't you? Like you said, you're paying the money, and like, I mean, this is one of the reasons I don't really do IBJJF, because you pay like 100 fucking quid. Like the last IBJJF I did was like when I just got my blue belt and I went and did nationals. And I'd like cut shitloads of weight for it, and I was on the mat at 10 o'clock, and I was in Tesco at 10:05. Like, and I'd spent like fucking 300 quid going all the way down to London, staying overnight. You've got your food costs, and it's a long way to go for that kind of money for people. So I'm a big believer in like having more than like trying to get guys as many matches as they can.
The thing that's been sort of given to me to sort of maybe go within the future is the white and blue belt do get the losers belt, but if you like sort of purple advanced division up, maybe get rid of that and offer an absolute, because I think the higher belts prefer that anyway, because you're at a point, purple, brown, well definitely brown and black anyway, where you're at a point where you can compete at any weight even if you're a smaller guy anyway. Like we've mentioned so many times on this podcast, and we'll have to get him on, Kev Corkill. Piss wet through, he didn't play away more than 65 kilograms. And he would fucking destroy most fucking heavyweights at any belt. So, maybe that's something to go with, and I completely agree. Maybe even as a strength and conditioning side, obviously for people to give you feedback and to make sure your plan works, you need to go send them out to competition and then get the feedback back. And if they only have one match of 10 seconds, you're like, well, we didn't really learn anything. What was that 3 months of prepping for?
Yeah. But I agree. Like higher belts, I think it doesn't really matter, does it? Like if you're competing at sort of purple to black, you're sort of relatively used to it, I imagine. I'd say 90% of the population will be used to competing a sort of knockout style anyway, so it's not as important. But I think it's a big factor for the white and blues, and I think I always try and if we've got guys that are asking about competing, we always try and push them to comps that have got that you get more than one match essentially.
I feel like we're quite lucky in the north now, where we're getting more events like Empire 24/7 and obviously Grapplers on the scene, where they don't have the prestige as IBJJF or like NAGA or anything like that. But I feel like some of the levels, especially in the north, is so high. It's hard to medal sometimes. I know a lot of people that maybe go to maybe the Europeans in Portugal, they'll medal and say the blue belt's there, but then we'll come back to 24/7 or even Empire, and then not even get out the first round. Obviously, for the draw. But you just need to go against the right people for the experience. And unless you're competing at the Grapple Fest, when it actually means a hell of a lot and it can get you stats and then sponsors come on board and money and stuff like that, then get the experience at the tournaments, have fun with them.
100%, mate. I'm for myself as somebody who competes, whenever I pick tournaments to do, like I want something that I value a tournament that's well run, and you're going to get value for your money over a tournament that's got a high prestige. Do you know what I mean? I mean, don't get me wrong, like, fucking hell, I'd love to have a world medal around my neck, but I'd rather do something and help support the community from where I am, like Empire, for example, and get some value out of that. Like, I'm not arsed whether, I mean, as much as I want to win, a loss at Empire isn't really a massive, it's not going to fucking keep me up at night. Do you know what I mean?
Learning side.
Yeah, so I can go and do an Empire and enjoy it and just like fucking cock around with some good grapplers. Like, I mean, my division at Empire, like for my rank, you've got guys like James Duckett, who's obviously a really good purple belt from Manchester. You've got Josh Roberts, who's like a really good purple belt. Both guys have been on like Grapple Fest. Obviously, there's probably many more, but they're the first two that come to my mind. So you're getting good rounds, you're getting hard sort of competition matches. But if you lose, you've lost like, I don't even fucking maximum 50 quid. Like, you're not fucking forking out miles. It's 20 minutes down the road. So the sort of risk factor of winning and losing isn't as big. So it's I always try and push for myself and for guys to go and do these comps that are smaller. You're supporting local communities, local scenes, and you're keeping these comps running. But you lose, who gives a shit? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's like you said, there's no real sponsorship requirement behind it. You're not losing out on money or fame or anything like that. You're just going and having a good time competing. So I'm a big believer in comps that give value to the competitor rather than just the sort of reward of a medal, if that makes sense.
Do you enjoy local ones as well? You get like a lot more the sort of the raw talent that maybe don't have the access to get to the bigger, more expensive tournaments where, like you said, you're spending 300, 400, sometimes 500, 600 quid to get to them. Where then you may only get the one round, you may go and get a medal, but then you come home and you go to like your local tournament and you've got someone who maybe can't make it to these big tournaments because they've got family commitments or work commitments, but they probably wipe the floor with half the people in the division that they travel to go to see. Like I said, I've had some of my toughest rounds at local comps as opposed to bigger tournaments that I've done. Yeah. And like, I think I value the local comps just as much, or probably a little bit more than some of the bigger ones.
100%. I'm with you, mate. And as they're growing as well, I mean, people are starting to realise that IBJJF are just fucking money grabbing pricks, aren't they? So,
Really?
There's a lot more value to these local comps. Like, people are actually choosing to do them more than they're choosing to do the big ones. And I think obviously you've got like that 10% that are actually looking to medal at these majors. But the rest of us that are just sort of average, I mean, I consider myself quite average, but average competitors, there's a lot of value to them, and they're growing, they're getting better, and they've got more value to people, and people are seeing the importance of them more. So I'm a big fan of them. Big fan of it. Like I said, if I think somebody's adding value to the competitor, then I'm all for it, me personally.
Do you find, like, when you're at the comps, like, for argument's sake, like Empire, I don't know if you did the one last April, mine classed as European Championship, even though that got a bit of backlash, but fuck the haters. I did one 4 years ago, I did one 4 years later, I did it the right way. Like, obviously, Sam Quinn in that one beat Matt Inman in his division. Yeah. Obviously, Matt's a great grappler. It's a pro MMA fighter, one of the biggest names. So Sam put that on a notch on his bedpost, like, I beat Matt Inman, which is a big, big feat. And I've seen other people like Lee Simpson beat Jason Tan 4 years ago, or 5 years ago now, the other European Championship. Do you, when you're there and you've got your technical clients or part of your brotherhood, like Sam, etc., or Shane at the comps, do you like competing at them because they're there as well and you can literally watch how they're getting on? Do you enjoy that?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I mean, I'm as much as I'm a competitor and a coach, I'm a fan of grappling as well. So if I can watch, like, I'm a bit of a like a video nerd, me, so I can just sit and watch technique. I think I'm probably one of the only people who got through 8 hours of John Danaher's leg lock system. So
10 minutes and that was switched off.
So I'm quite good. I'm probably one of the good sides of being a coach is I'm quite good at watching things and picking things up. So anybody, obviously, like, I've got a sort of want for those guys that are my clients to win, but I'm a fan of grappling all around. Like, was it Empire? There was a guy, it must have been Empire, like a couple, when was it? Probably like end of last year. And some guy's got a single leg, and this guy's like backflipped out this single leg and gone straight into a farmer's carry. And it was just like, what the fuck have I just seen at a local comp? Do you know what I mean? Like, that was mad. And it was class, mate. Like, you don't, I mean, obviously, like we said, you could get that at IBJJF, but you can get it in a fucking sports hall in Manchester. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it was class, mate. So I like going, even if I'm not competing, I like going and supporting the team because I get to watch people compete, and I think I enjoy that. So, I think you learn things. I'm somebody who, like, I absorb information quite well and quite good at, like, watching environments. So if I can learn things about certain competitors, and there might be competitions, you know what I mean? I can watch somebody who might be in my division and take tips from that, like, well, that's what he does really well, and use it to my own advantage, almost as if I've competed myself.
Nice. Do you see that as like a bit of an advantage then? Like, you've got, say, again, over other people who train in the sport or even compete, that your sort of knowledge of, like, anatomy and way to move when you're training and drilling, do you find that you can pick up moves that a little bit easier than, say, someone who's not got the similar background?
I pick things up quite quickly. But I wouldn't say I'm any, but I mean, I joke with I made Sam laugh the other day, like, I can, you know, like when Sherlock Holmes has got these, like, fucking memory thing. If you remember watching Sherlock, the old series, and he, like, closes his eyes, I can do that with, like, grappling. Like, for some reason, I can just visualize technique. But I made Sam laugh because I was like, I just can't fucking do it when I'm rolling. Like, I can remember it and coach it, but as soon as I go into rolling, my head just goes blank and I just go back to the shit stuff that doesn't work. So, but it is advantage when you're coaching, because obviously you understand technique a bit more, and you can help pass that on to somebody else. From a competitor's perspective, no, because I'm fucking useless and just do the same old shit. Like I said, that don't work very well. But like, from a coaching perspective, it's really helpful, because if somebody's doing something, you're watching somebody roll, like, and you can be like, "Oh, try this instead." And I think that's obviously something that like Danaher does really well. Guys like that they can take information and apply it to somebody else. All right, he might not be the most successful competitor out there, and obviously there's that argument about non-competitive coaches and shit like that. But what he does exceptionally well, and probably arguably better than most people, is take information and apply it to the guys that he's working with. So I guess like that is a good thing, and I found that's been helpful whenever I've been coaching guys.
I got sort of through into the deep end with coaching from right at the beginning, because 11 years ago, and Simon will agree with this, the MMA scene wasn't anything like it is now. And I got through into one of my mates wanted to fight, and he had no cornerman, and I was like, right, well, I'm not letting you fight in the cage without having a cornerman. I'll come down, and so I just sort of learned to coach quite well from there. But even though I don't train, if at all, anymore, and Simon knows this, probably once a year now for the last 7 years, whenever I do get to do a bit of coaching, maybe like my cousin who competes at Empire every now and then, I can literally, word for word, coach someone easily, even though I don't train. And when I do train, I'll literally be mauled by even new white belts now, like I'm not even that good. But I'll be laughing, and what you're laughing at is like, because I know what you're going to do, and just because I don't train, I just can't stop it anymore. I could talk you through what you're about to do, and I still won't be able to stop it. And that's my own fault for not training, but I feel like your mind is always there, and I feel like the better you are as a grappler, especially you two, brown and purples, it must be natural but irritating because you are training so much. But when you can coach better than you train, does that get to you?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that pisses me off. Like, you'll watch something and I'll be like, right, I'm going to go do this, and I know exactly how it works and exactly what I need to do, and I'm in the position and I just can't get it to work, and it infuriates me. And I guess that's the problem that everybody has, really. So yeah, it's fucking annoying. Put it that way.
Yourself at the side shouting at you to tell you to do it. I can't.
Yeah. It's like the moment we always make us laugh, like when you actually like coach somebody a competition, and when you're watching it, it looks so easy. You're just like, oh, just escape your hips or just shift a little bit, and you know full well inside the person's going, I fucking can't. Like, just leave me.
You get in here and do it, dickhead.
Turn into them. I can't. They're all the weights from my head.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it is helpful from that perspective. But yeah, I guess it's just a bit of a coach's curse, isn't it? You're battling two demons at the same time.
Have you seen that video? I think it's in America. It's like an MMA fight, and it's like some guy's in ground and pound, and he's like just getting his position and stuff ready before he's about to hit him. And some woman or guy just screams, "Hit him in the face!" And he just literally looks over and goes, "I didn't think of that," and just starts hitting him. It's like the most basic thing works.
Yeah.
So with sort of like with your sort of training at the moment, then is there anything that you're doing differently now that we're sort of in lockdown, or have you got like a good setup at home?
I mean, I've been fortunate that I've got access to a gym, so yeah. So I've been like still been able to lift and things like that. So I mean, it's been very unimpressive, my training at the minute. Like, I mean, the start of the year I had a bit of a back injury, so I've been like pretty much the week before we went into lockdown was like my first week back training. So that's been belting, but at least I was adjusted to not training. But yeah, so it's just been sort of trying to build up strength around the injury, essentially. From there, I've been doing a lot more conditioning work than I normally would, just like sitting on a fucking rower for hours on end. But yeah, it's been good. Just trying to keep active. I watch quite a lot of tape anyway, so just been rewatching things. I managed to convince myself. I don't normally watch fights that I've lost, but I've managed to convince myself to go back and watch some of them. So, yeah. So to be honest, it's not the only difference is I've not been rolling. So it's just been ticking over, really, just doing what I can, really focus on sort of building mental capacities and work capacity more than anything. Just like I said, focus on what you can do. Don't focus on what you can't do. I think everyone's whinging and complaining that they can't do stuff. But they're just wasting time of things that they can do.
So talking about like building mental capacity as well, I think that's a huge aspect of the grappling game, even combat sports in general. Is there anything sort of particular that you do personally, or you get your athletes to do personally, to try and sort of break down them barriers or even increase that capacity?
I think I mean, obviously I'm not a mental coach, so I don't do too much of it. I try not to get involved in that sort of thing, because obviously I don't want to step out my scope. But from a personal point of view, So I'm not really somebody, I won't like sit and write down like mind maps and stuff like that. I'm not great at that. Like the thing that you did, that mindful grappler, I thought was fucking brilliant. I think it was really, really good. But from my point of view, so what I do is I do a lot of like visualization. So, I mean, one of my main sort of barriers to competition is I've got this weird thing where I need to know what things feel like. I know that sounds a bit weird, but so like when I get nervous for a competition, I'm not nervous for the competition. I'm nervous to how the person's going to feel when they're grappling.
I know what you mean.
So for me, for competition, that initial nerves is that first initial contact. So I like to use visualization to try and sort of get that feeling, if that makes sense. So like if I go for a walk, for example, if I take my dog for a walk, I try and use that time to visualize the environment. So like Grapple Fest, for example, it's like, how am I going to feel in the background? How am I going to feel when I'm warming up? I'm going to get nervous, going to be sweaty. What is that feeling like when they call your name, when you walk down, when you make that first initial grip? So I try to use that time to sort of think about how I'm going to feel, if that makes sense. Not necessarily about my performance. I mean, I know what like whenever I've lost, I know exactly what I've done wrong and things like that. So, and I'm confident enough in myself now as a grappler that I can sort of rise to the occasion that is put in front of me. All right, I might win, I might lose, but I feel like I can hold my own in that environment. For me, it's the feeling surrounding the competition. So whenever I do any sort of mental capacity work, I try and visualize the actual environment that I'm going to be in, whether it be an Empire. Is the room going to be loud? Is it going to be hot? Is it going to be sweaty? Am I going to have room to warm up? I'm going to be sat mat side. Is there going to be people around me? Do you know what I mean? Those sort of things that can affect your overall sort of preparation for the competition on the day. So I try and use the time to listen to similar music. Is it a walkout song that I'm going to hear? What's that feeling going to bring up? Is it going to get my adrenaline going? Things like that, and get used to that, because I think a lot of the time people perceive nerves as they perceive the adrenaline rush as the nerves, whereas they can actually be two different things. So if you're more accustomed to the fact that your adrenaline's going to spike, your heart rate's going to go up, then you're going to perceive that, and you're going to be all right. And I know the fact that this is just my sort of, if you call it fight or flight, kicking in to get ready to gear up to competition. If I can control that and allow it a little bit. So I think when I first started competing, coming from a rugby background, you'd put like your heavy music on and you get dead fired up. And then I realised that it's too technical of a sport for that to work for me. You're not just running head first into a tackle. You've got to be technical, and you've got to think through situations. And then, so what I did is I try and be under aroused, and then I just never got into gear. So for me personally, it's allowing a bit of an adrenaline spike so that you are aroused and you're aware of what's going on. You are sort of reactive, but not to the point where you've got this like tunnel vision and you're just heading for one thing, but you don't know where you're sticking your neck or sticking your leg, for example. So I try and put myself in that state of arousal when I'm sort of visualizing the thing, so that I have a feeling of what it might be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Sort of like, I get what you mean with the sort of the feel as well, because like it's that first contact where if they maybe go like that first initial whip, you're going, oh shit, these are strong. Yeah. Or so you sort of step in, you go, oh, fucking hell, they're quick. Just trying to get that initial reaction done first without you, really.
Yeah. So one of the good things about Grapple Fest is when you weigh in and you take your pictures, you shake hands. So you get that grip. So it's something that I really enjoy, because I'm like, I felt the grip. Do you know what I mean? I know what's coming. So that helps clear my nerve. Funnily enough, it helps clear my nerves. But obviously, like tournament styles, you don't feel it until they've actually gripped you.
Yeah.
So it can be, that's what the things, I mean, it's the weirdest fucking thing, but it's breaking that contact. Like when we used to play rugby, you always wanted to be the person that defended first, because you never wanted to run that ball into that first collision, because everyone's always like amped up and ready to fucking rip your head off. So you always wanted to be on the other end of it. So it's the same with jiu-jitsu. I like to feel that grip before they make a grip, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just put your wrist out and just say, just grab the wrist. You know what that feels like first. That's the way I shake hands.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been quite fortunate in like obviously, when you compete, everybody feels relatively strong, but there's only been 2 occasions where I thought, fuck me, this is going to be horrific. Like, so it's, and everyone else has been relatively sort of all right. Like, I mean, I've got a terrible judge of intensity in me. So I've only like only twice in competition have some.
Oh, you've got to mute them, mate. Oh, there you go.
You come back.
Thank you.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You there, Andy?
Yeah. Sorry.
I was going to just mention about the nerves. It's quite a broad, like, Simon, I'll answer the question to you as well, but for the years that I competed, the thing that I struggled with most, well, the 2 things, was I had dry mouth. So whenever I put my gum shield in, I would always get dry mouth, and it was like a response to nerves. I wasn't nervous, but it was less like I knew what was coming, and I hate that I couldn't take it out once I started competing. The second thing was that, like you mentioned before, under aroused, I was never nervous to a point where I got out of second gear.
Yeah.
Last MMA fight that I had, the commentators basically had, it's like I'm training. I know I've mentioned this in the podcast before, but it's like I was just like going through the motions. I wasn't really giving the full. I didn't have that fire, that killer instinct. And I know a lot of people think, and a lot of people said that if you don't have that nervousness, you don't, like you say, fight or flight. You don't have that fight mode, and you don't have that flight mode as well. If you're not nervous, you won't run and you won't fight. You're sort of in lieu, sort of in the middle, and that's sort of where I found myself a lot. The only time I probably ever went for something, it was when I was on a roll of wins, when I thought, right, that was a bit easier, I've got confidence, and then I sort of got more aggressive and started finishing people. But other than that, I wasn't anything. What about you, Si?
I think it's an area of subjects that, an area of conversation that a lot of coaches tend to shy away from. Not like grappling coaches and across the works, like, because Andy's been down Atherton a few times, and Darren's very big on speaking about the psychology behind position, techniques. Cam's big on it as well, and it's something that I always try and talk about with the guys at Hive as well. It's try and talk about not necessarily just the technical reason behind something, but also the psychological reason behind something, and sort of trying to sort of explain and sort of justify saying, look, it's okay to be nervous, it's okay to not feel nervous, and sort of have the conversation with the guys that I'm coaching myself as well, just to sort of normalize it for them to a degree, because if that conversation is not had, you're sort of letting them go out there a bit of a disadvantage. And I say not necessarily trying to coach them through it, just sort of that awareness, because I remember my initial years of competing, I was a bag of nerves, and it took getting to sort of factory and working with Cam at ASW to sort of have them conversations and have a better understanding of the psychology behind competing and training. And that's when sort of things started to come together.
No, I agree 100%. I think it's one of the things, like one of the hardest things I think for grapplers to understand, and any combat athlete, is when you look at it as a perspective. Like, one of the things that I've always done is, rather than look at where I want to be at that moment, look where I want to be in 5 years, for example. So when you first start competing at white belt, it's very easy to get caught up in like I know so many guys that beat me at white belt or won major comps at white belt, and they're absolutely fucking nowhere to be seen now. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's easy to get caught up in this hype, but it's important to remember that no one gives a fuck about like what you do at white belt. Do you know what I mean? So
what did you say? No one gives a fuck about white belts, which is probably true, but
I try, and whenever I'm talking to people about competition, I'm trying to say, just use this time. Look, get beat as much as you can. I know it sounds weird, but at white belt, get beat as much as you can. Gary Tonin said it once best. He was like, I'm trying to be the best black belt, not the best purple belt. Like,
yeah,
you need to be losing at lower belts. If you want to be a successful competitor, realistically, until black belt, no one really cares, do they? Like, it doesn't really mean anything. Like, obviously, it's great that you've got like a brown belt, British Open medal or what have you, but really, in the grand scheme of competitive jiu-jitsu, the black belt is where you want to be as successful as possible, isn't it? So use the time. Don't think about like right now. Think about where you're going to be in, how this competition is going to affect you in like X amount period of time. And if you can get used to that fact that, like, we had a girl, we got a client of mine, like, she's a good friend, and she's a good grappler as well. She's only white belt, only been training like 6 months. And she was like dead nervous for a competition. I was like, look, you need to lose. Like, I'm not saying go out and lose on purpose, but use these, just build as much experience as you can at these lower ranks. A, because no one cares. B, it doesn't mean anything. And that's it, really. Just get as many rounds in the tank as you can and think, how is this experience going to reflect on me when I'm hitting purple, brown and black? Then I'm competing against people that can actually grapple and we're not just squeezing and holding on to each other for 5 minutes. Like, it's this, I think people are very much in the moment. And it's one thing that I focus on with coaches, like when I'm like working with athletes as well, is we try and put plans together for long periods of time. Because it's not how this competition is going to affect you right now. Yes, all right, the medal might be nice on your wall, but what effect is it going to have in 2 years? Because if you're not competing in 2 years, then that medal at blue belt doesn't really mean much, if that makes sense. Like, there's no real value behind it. If you're not competing in the future, then everything that you're doing to compete right now is very meaningless, isn't it? It's not. All right, we could make a different discussion if you're a hobbyist who likes to compete twice a year, then obviously that medal is going to have high significant value. But if you're somebody who wants to make a career out of competition and eventually use that to maybe market businesses or open up your own gym and coach through that, then obviously the more longevity you can have through competition, then the better your outlook is going to be. So that'll help take the nerves away because you've got greater experience in the competition setting. So if you worry less about what's actually going to happen on that day, I know it's easy to say, but if you think about how that experience is going to affect your overall journey as a jiu-jitsu athlete or a grappler or a wrestler or whatever it might be, then you're going to be better. I think it's something that if you look at like the elite athletes in any sport, they're very good at. If you look at like when Conor McGregor was on his way up, like it was never like, oh, this is what I'm going to do now. It was, I'm going for that belt. It was, this is going to take me to this point of view. And it was like, all right, I'll beat whoever, Mendez. Right, well, now give me the belt. Do you know what I mean? It was those steps. From the minute he started, it was like, no, I'm going to be a UFC title holder. It wasn't that was his goal, which it was, but it was, I need to fulfill these steps to get me to that point, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I think that's an important thing. People always say, oh, I want to be a world champion, but they miss the steps that it takes to get to that point. They just want to go from, oh, I'm a blue belt to, oh, I'm going to be a black belt world champion, but they forget the things that go on. And I think that's an important thing we need to sort of try and push as well, is that planning of longevity. You don't peak for that moment. You're thinking about where I'm going to be at my best physical point, and every experience in that situation builds to that point.
Yeah, I think the context of, obviously you don't see it in grappling as in records like you do in MMA, like 13 and 4, 30 wins, 4 losses. If you looked at a context of a blue belt or a purple belt competitor of how many bouts they've won to lost, it would probably be 10 times more losses than wins.
Yeah.
You could have, for argument's sake, you could compete at the Europeans in Portugal, gi or no gi, whatever you want to do, for 6 years in a row. The first 5 years, you get knocked out in the first round. That's a 0-5 record. But on the 6th year, you win 5 matches and get the gold medal. But you still got a 50-50 record over the last 6 years. It's the context of what the 5 wins meant. So you lose, you learn. So you could have been a white belt for the first 2 years, then a blue, then a purple, and then you win it at brown. But you've lost at white. If you put it on paper, it makes no sense. But if you explain the context, you've won when it mattered the most. Yeah,
100%. And that's what it's about. And it's easy to get caught up in the win, like the right now. And this is a bit fucking philosophical, which is not really me. But like, it's easy to get caught in this right now because that's what seems important at the time. But it's very important to also be reflective of where you want to take the career. If you want to be competitive, like you said, I'd rather be successful at the point where it matters than at a point where it doesn't really matter that much. And it's just about building experience. Like, I mean, you look at like the best in the world, like if you think about Gordon, he says it quite a lot. He's like, I didn't do anything till brown belt. I never won anything. I mean, and obviously he's a freak of nature, so he's a bit of a different discussion, but the underlying principle, it was like, I never won anything until I was like a minimum of brown belt. And I think he won no gi worlds, didn't he? But it's about how you, in the competitive cycle, those lower belts are just steps of experience that you're trying to build up to. If you take away the martial arts side of things and you were just like, these are steps that you have to go to build experience and ability, then people just do them to take them to that point. But obviously the belt factor comes in, and it becomes the martial arts side of things rather than the sport side of things. But it's important that people are sort of objective when it comes to looking at competition, and not just worry, because obviously one loss can knock you for a while. So if the more I think Keenan said it. Keenan's like, I can't remember any matches that I lost because they were just stepping stones. He just sort of used them and they pushed him onto his next thing. And I think it's important to look at it that way.
That's a very good outlook on them, to be fair. Like, that's something that I've not really looked at personally as well, is sort of looking at a loss in that way. I've always sort of looked at them as, they need to happen for you to sort of get better and sort of reflect back on and sort of go back to the drawing board and make improvements. But never really looked at it as a way to be like, okay, it's just a stepping stone to get into the end goal.
Yeah, that's the way I try and look at it anyway. Like, I mean, I've like with Grapple Fest, like you want to win, you're on the big stage, you're on flow. But at the end of it, if you lose, you're competing against somebody who's forcing errors from you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I lost twice. I lost both guys from the same gym, unfortunately. I've got a fucking bad record against next gen lads. But like,
people have though. A lot of people have.
So like, I thought Aaron Jordan. I mean, looking back now, Aaron is ridiculous. Like, he's such a good grappler. So like, but I didn't know him at the time, and we had like a really good back and forth. But the only thing that pissed me off about that match wasn't losing, was the fact that it was just over quite quickly. I was having a class time, but then again, like it was like, you got beat, but it was like, all right, I've lost to a good guy. I've shown my worth, put him in some trouble situations, like, and you just, how can I take that and move on to the next thing? I lost to Ben Hills. Like, that was one of the shittest matches that I've ever fucking been part of. It was dreadful. But that was like a split decision. So like, it was fucking, there was no sub attempts. I think he won on like a couple diving guillotine attempts, but like, it was shite. So
funnily enough, what I referred to 20 minutes ago about being through in the deep end, cornering someone, was against Ben Hills in 2010.
Yeah.
I cornered Scott Haydock. Simon, you might remember Scott from
Scott,
a long time ago. He competed in Bay Cup or something like that, and it was against Ben, and Ben was really young back then. And so that's just how it comes full circle. Ben took a lot of time off, but he was still a great competitor. Obviously, you've competed against him, but what I was going to say was, obviously, you're losing because you're testing yourself. So if you're not losing, you're not testing yourself. 100%. So I think you would rather be in that position.
100%. And like, you can take great things from it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think at the time I was the only person that Ben hadn't subbed on Grapple Fest. Do you know what I mean? Like, he was like a 4 or 5-0 at that point. Do you know what I mean? So, I like, obviously you can take great things out of bad situations as well. And I think I'm always happy if I give as good as I've got, then, and I end up losing, then I can take that on the chin and just keep moving. But you've got to look at it objectively. And like you said, like, obviously we're talking a lot about Ben here, but like you said, 2010, like, if Ben's been training since like 2010, he's got another 6 years of where he started to where I'm at. And I've got to that point in like 4.5 years. So I've got to take it from my perspective, is you've got to be like, you've got to look at it from a whole world picture and be like, all right, at that moment in time, I might have lost that match, but in the grand scheme of things, it's going to lead me to be a better grappler. Like my goal through jiu-jitsu is not to be the best competitor. It's to be as well-rounded and as well-respected as I possibly can. I'd rather, if I chipped up to a gym, like, someone's going to go, oh, fuck me, it's going to be an hard day today, than have a gold medal around my neck, if that makes sense. That means more to me as a coach and as a grappler than having won something. I'd rather like be respected and liked than somebody show up who's got a gold medal and be like, fucking hell, it's this prick again. Do you know what I mean? Like, so that means more to me as a grappling sense. And like, I'd rather be as well-rounded as possible. Like, you look at Daz, like, Daz has been training for like 30 years. Like, I'd much rather get to the point where Darren's at and be that good on the fucking ground, but might not have an IBJJF world medal, but everyone fucking knows who Daz is when he walks on a mat. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, you've got to look at it as a perspective point of view. Like, I know guys that have got like multiple world medals, but put Darren Morris on a mat with them and they're like fucking children. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, there's fucking positives and negatives to everything, if that makes sense. You've got to have a bit of perspective about it all.
And plus, if you've seen a bracket of people that are world beaters at that weight, and then you see Daz Morris's name, that's the name that perks your interest most.
Yeah, exactly,
Because
mate. So,
he's not competed for so long, so people want to see how actually good he is in a competitive, which he probably will blow a lot of this world away in what he can do.
Yeah.
And he's humble as well. Like he's a good guy. He's humble, and the crop that he's sort of taught over the years, the levels is unreal. Like Lee Chadwick, the world champions in MMA, but also in grappling as well. It's unreal.
That's it. So
decent one to sort of look at. Someone that Andy's worked with as well, Stano.
Oh yeah, Mick Stano. Yeah,
He's changed so much. Like I worked with him probably about 10 years ago on FCC or whenever it was, when he was at Hammer, and now he's at ASW. And mate, levels.
He's just such a nice guy as well, Mick. Like he's just a genuine bloke. That's one of the reasons I chose to work with him, because he's such a nice guy, such down to earth bloke. He's eager to learn. He just does what he's told. Like he's not really egotistical. He just gets his head down. He's a family man, business owner. Like he's just a good bloke all around. So he's a really, really genuine guy.
Did you? So you've worked? Is he part of your clientele as well, or just training partner?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, Stano. Yeah, we work with Stano. I mean, we've not done much at the minute, obviously, because of the lockdown, and obviously just come off that loss. But
so was you working with him at the world title fight at that time?
No, so that was just before I met him.
Right.
So he obviously, I think Chaddy was supposed to fight for the belt, wasn't he? And then Stano stepped in instead. That was when he was at Hammer. I met him at ASW. So when he initially joined or came back, I don't know what the situation was. He trained at ASW. That's when I first met him.
Nice. So if you had to sort of look back at, even as a coach, what sort of the highlights for you, whether it's been, as Simon said before, Gen Pop, or whether it's been someone that I like, the grapple and MMA fighter, what's been the highlight for you where you've been part of someone that's done something amazing? You thought, yeah, I was part of that.
I mean, obviously, like Stano getting to fight on Cage Warriors is a big thing when you watch a client like on a big show like that. That's always nice to see. I used to take a lot of joy from like Matty Holmes when he was successful, because you're watching guys that one of the big things for me, coaches, and like I've sponsored a couple of guys over the years, is I try and help guys that might not necessarily have the ability to either fund themselves, or they're busy through other things, or they don't have access to things. So for me, from a coach's perspective, that gives me as much pleasure as somebody winning a medal, for example. I'd rather, as long as I'm helping somebody better themselves, that's where I get my kicks from, essentially. Like, you want to see somebody, if somebody's happy and succeeding in a way that they want to succeed, that's without sounding like the biggest cliche thing ever, that's what you want to get from a coaching perspective. I don't give a shit if they're a white belt at Empire or fighting at the UFC. The outcome is still the same. They get the same amount of attention. They get the same amount of like my time. That it doesn't matter really. Like it's what they get from the experience that is my kick, essentially, whether it's Gen Pop or somebody in the combat world.
There you go.
Simon, do you answer the postman?
Did, yeah, sorry lads. The parcel will not come.
So I guess you being a fan of Jiu-Jitsu and I presume MMA as well, what sort of bouts in grappling MMA sort of that stick out in your head in history that you thought, yeah, I've enjoyed watching that? Maybe it's before you started getting into the sport or now?
I mean, the best grappling match I've ever seen is Gary Tonin and what's his name? Polaris on.
Oh yeah.
That was fucking ridiculous.
Polaris.
Yeah. That's probably so obviously my like jiu-jitsu journey is actually sort of whatever situation. So I started off like very gi orientated and sort of transitioned into the no gi side of things. There's Buchecha and Rodolfo, that like the best match ever. That was mega. Anytime sort of Buchecha fights, I like watching Buchecha. I'm trying to think, the top of my head. MMA, like Lawler, Rory McDonald was probably one of the best things I've watched. The second fight. I'm trying to think now. Got me thinking. Oh, I can't really think of any more now. I mean, obviously, previous ADCC, then you've got like Tone and the Kanatu fight, the one that was back and forth. That was an unbelievable match. I think that's pretty much it. There's nothing that stands out like mega in my mind. I like a bit of everything. Like, I don't really tend to just stick with one type of style. Like, it's not like always, oh, this is lapel or this is leg locks. If someone puts on a good event, then I'll watch it and try and take things from it, if that makes sense. There's always something you can add from everything. So, like I said, trying to be as well-rounded as possible.
Nice.
So, like, so you touched on your like your client base before. So, like, how do your sort of programs work? Like, are they sort of online, face to face?
So everything. So we do. I done it again. Fucking we do. I do. I do like one-to-ones, and online. Sorry, fucking lost my train of thought. Yeah. So every one-to-one works like one-to-one would. Obviously, they get access to everything that the online client does, so all the systems and the programming. Because obviously they might not see me throughout every session, so they get all the programs sent over. So. Yeah, so one-to-one works as you'd expect one-to-one clientele would work. The online systems, I have like two systems for online. So we have the one-to-one online coaching, which is basically the same as one-to-one coaching, but obviously they don't see me in the flesh. So that's like I built like a full system. So they get like, we put like yearly plans in place. We work out like sort of optimal training schedules. They have like, I mean, I don't really do nutrition really, but that sort of dietary advice, should I say. Then they get the full sort of training program, depending on what we're sort of working towards, whether it's like in a camp, for example, or more of an off-season period like we're in now. We have like recovery structures that we put in place. So I give them like targets to aim for in terms of recovery management. Yeah, so that's that sort of side of things. Then we do like weekly check-ins. So every week they have certain things that they have to fill out based on sort of feedback to me, and I can sort of analyze it and track it and make sure that we're moving in the right direction. And then we'll do like end of block reviews. So let's say they do a 4-week block. At the end of the block, we might do like a video chat like this, and we'll sit down. What did you like? What did you didn't like? What worked? Are you feeling like you're getting better from this sort of thing that we've been working on? And then you've got the sort of the raw programs. The raw program was basically like a budget version essentially. So I wrote like 12 months of programming. So dead simple, dead basic. Pretty much anybody could follow it from beginner to elite. And that was like, so it was based off blocks. So for anyone who doesn't know, like block periodization basically means like one thing leads to another thing to another thing. So it filters quite nicely over like a 12-week period, for example. So without getting too sciencey, based on like basically drop-offs. So certain requisites in fitness will drop off faster than the others. So like maximal strength typically will stay around quicker than any speed adaptation. So obviously, typically when you're doing a peak towards competition, you might have more of a speed or power orientation towards the end because the drop-off will be quite quick from that. So the block periodization model is basically like hypertrophy, strength, power, speed, rinse and repeat essentially. So dead simple, dead basic to follow. So that's like a dead cheap method. So every month they pay like a basic fee. I think it's $10 a month, and they get 4-week blocks sent over. And then we've got like a training group for everybody on the program, and then they can feedback. And everyone gets like access to memberships, the membership site where I post like videos like similar to what I do on Instagram, but obviously a bit more detailed and a bit more based around like series rather than just one topic here and there. So yes, there's like the one-to-one, the one-to-one online, which obviously is a bit more detailed, which is a bit better for competitors, because we look at like the whole picture of like training and recovery and planning, and then the raw program, which is just the training program that gets sent to them.
Oh, fair. So you mentioned your Instagram there, like follow your Instagram quite closely to sort of see what videos you're putting out, because you put out quite a lot of educational stuff.
Yeah.
Sort of what sort of started that off initially? Because like I think remember the first one, was it like a 5-part series on preparing for competition?
Like planning competition. So obviously I'd been on Instagram for a while, and and I used to just post a lot of like infographics. So just like pick a topic and talk about it. But what I was finding was I couldn't really, they were a pain in the arse to make, and they used to take me like 2 hours to put together. And it was hard to get any detail into them. So I've never been the best at like writing, so I've always been better at sort of talking about something. So it was taking me, A was a time matter, and B, again, I was finding that I couldn't sort of put out my information as best as I wanted to. So I went on a course to do with sort of almost marketing essentially. And he was just like, the guy who ran it was just like, look, you've just got to, it's not so much about the delivery, it's about the information that you're putting in. And so I was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to sit on my couch. I'm just going to get a tripod for my phone. And I'm just going to sit and talk a load of shit about training. So it basically just stemmed from there. So it's just like, if I can get more information and more details into a video than I can from a picture, then I will do that. Obviously, they take a bit longer to plan, which is why I don't do them sort of every week, because I like to pick a certain topic and sort of elaborate on it a bit more. So like the recent one was like the return to the mats. So we talked about like how to structure it, measuring training intensities, made sort of how you sort of balance the transition essentially, so you're not like spiking an acute workload and things like that. But yeah, so I like videos. I found I was much better at talking about information than I was about writing it down. So that's always been much more of a benefit. So I try and use social media for that more than anything.
Oh, fair. Social media is a massive key, especially in this time, and previous anyway. Do you feel like maybe, and same question to you, Simon, that a certain aspect of social media is better? Like, do you think Instagram works more? Do you think Facebook works more? Twitter is a rarity now, but that could work. Or do you prefer like putting stuff on YouTube and then sharing it? How do you think it works for both of you guys? Andy first.
I mean, unfortunately, it's a necessary evil, I think, social media. I mean, personally, I'm not a massive fan. Like, I'll have like periods of good times and periods of bad times on it. Like, I'll be dead motivated, I've loads of stuff to talk about, and then there are other times I just can't be arsed with it, and I just want to deal with my clients on a one-to-one and not worry about social media. Unfortunately, when you're working online as a coach, you need that drawing aspect, don't you? You need to build that buy-in with guys that you don't necessarily meet on a face-to-face basis. So it is a necessary evil. It's a strange one, really, and it's something that I talk about with like the other coaches that I've mentioned earlier on, that we talk about increasing the sort of reach through social media, because obviously we are a good group of coaches that are putting out good information. But what you'll find is my information will be very centered around, so like where I am, to the north. So we've got Manchester, Liverpool, those sort of gyms. And then like Chris, who's in Birmingham, everything will be around Birmingham. But it's how do we increase our reach to guys in London, for example, who might not necessarily be getting the information. So it's a big factor. And I guess that's where the marketing side of things comes in. And there's all sorts of Instagram that I don't understand, that like the algorithms and shit like that I'm sure some fitness models will be able to tell me a lot more about. But yeah, so that's the downside of it, is that it's the worst thing about it is you'll spend ages thinking of a video and you'll think, this is brilliant, this is great information, guys can really use this, and then you'll put like a podium pic on, and then that gets more interactions, and you're just like, for fuck's sake, what am I doing here? Like, so it's a tough from that point of view, and at times it can be hard, because like I'm not normally quite a social person, if that makes sense. I'm not like, oh, this is what I'm doing, everything in your face kind of guy. So it can be sometimes a bit of a burden. So it can be tough, but it can be a great tool at the same time if you are use it properly, if that makes sense. I don't know how you found it, Si.
I think all the different platforms cater to different markets and different industries as well. So, like, one thing that I found is Facebook is more your older generation. So, our parents, like, they're more on Facebook than they are on Instagram. Instagram is more dominant for sort of our age, 20 to 30s. I think there's a few more coming through. I refuse to get TikTok. That's one I'm staying well away from. But yeah, they all sort of
future clientele, Simon.
they can keep it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they all sort of cater to different audiences and different demographics. Like Twitter, for me, I go there more for my sort of music sort of updates. So like I'll check out my artists if they've got any gossip for new albums, or then I'll sort of check out like the similar thing for Instagram as well for the music stuff. But Instagram's very visual and it's a bit more 20 to 30, bridging to 35-year-olds.
Yeah.
You're only saying that now because we're now 30, Simon.
Yeah. Just getting that under the rug there. But it won't surprise me if, as sort of Facebook's current users, sort of as they start to get older and Instagram's current users start to get that little bit older, there's going to be a gap now for that new generation of social media that's going to come through. Yeah. There's just going to be a constant either new social media trend that comes through or a reinvention of the last one that's going to come back, start again, and keep cycling through.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've all got very different audiences and very different ways to deliver the same message.
I find that Twitter is more like a Google now. So if you want to find out if something's true, you quickly put a little hashtag in. Like, I think someone put a fake post yesterday about Usman versus McGregor for the welterweight title, and I thought it doesn't make any sense, but it does look legit. So I looked at it, and it was a fake Ariel Juan account, and it took me 5 seconds. So I feel like it's a new Google for things. So I know it's not, it's a bit of a sad topic, but when like the Manchester bombing happened a few years ago, it was all over Twitter straight away. And then, like, before it was even on the news, like, my mum works the ambulance service, and I had to run around to her to tell her, like, I found this on Twitter. You might get called into work in a minute. And then 5 minutes later, there was a call. So I feel like Twitter is very, very fast that people post something like something's going on, or the trains are delayed, or it just seems to be more of an informative platform rather than somewhere you will get clients from. That's what I recognise it as.
See, I've never used Twitter, so I've got no real experience with it. Like, I don't even have it for like a personal social thing. So I just make, like, say, stick to Facebook and Instagram really. But I think people who crack social media tend to be very switched on. But there's certain, it's such a weird thing because you see it's easy to base success off followers and
you can pay for them.
Yeah, but it doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. Like, I mean, I know coaches that will probably have like 500 followers but are doing a really good job, and then you've got like Instagram models that have got like millions and they're absolute bags full of fucking wind. You know what I mean? So like, it can be like a frivolous pace. Social media, I try not to buy too much into it. Like I said, if I can, I upload stuff and then I just don't touch it and just don't look at it. Like, so, like I said, it's a necessary evil, and it can be helpful for business side of things, but it can also be negative for business side of things. So I try not to get too much caught up in it.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I'm literally on the verge of hitting 10,000 likes on Facebook, which is amazing for technically what started as a local tournament. But I don't think it means as much as it did a few years ago. Yeah, I'll celebrate. I'll put a post out saying thank you and stuff, which I am thankful for the support. My camera just went. But I just feel like things are moving away from Facebook a bit more, and it means a bit less than it did a few years ago. And you can see paid ads where you can literally pay for followers or likes, but then if you looked on the world map of where they are, they're probably not even in the country where you want it anyway. Which I think, well, what's the point in having them likes? It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting perspective, really, isn't it? And it is tough because it sort of makes the world go round, but at the same time, it's been to go further into it with the sort of current situation we're in. It's not been good for the current climate. Like, people just reading stuff off the internet one of the issues I think with I mean, fucking hell, we're going off on a tangent here, but one of the issues I think with the sort of the current population of people is people have lost the ability to think critically. They've lost the ability to see information and look at the good points and the bad points and where the source of information has come from, and look at that from like an objective point of view and be like, is this good information, if that makes sense? Like, and they just sort of read information. They're like, oh, well, that's truth. Like, how many people are still sharing things on Facebook like, oh, share this picture, or Facebook are going to link your account to Al Qaeda? You know what I mean? It's just like, how the fuck do you still believe in that? Like, we're in the 2020 and you're still sharing shit like that. Like, so people have just lost the ability to think critically about information. And again, it's the same with anything, whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's like strength conditioning. You've got to have this perspective to think critically. I mean, I won't mention any names and stuff like this, but there's been a common sort of topic and with my sort of network of coaches about there's been a certain guy sharing information, and he's just sharing information out of one book. And it's just like, if you write for jiu-jitsu, suddenly it becomes applicable to fucking everybody. And it's like, you've got to, yes, the book it's coming from is a brilliant book by a coach who probably knows more about strength training than most people will ever. He'll forgotten more about strength training than most people will forget. But just to cherry pick information and apply it to something isn't the way to go about things. You've got to look at that information and think, all right, how does this apply and how does it not apply? Is there better things to do? Is there not better things to do? And it's the same with social media. If you took everything that's said on social media as gospel, then you're not going to end up in a good position. So you've got to be able to think critically and think, right, what's good, what's bad, how does this apply to me, what's the source of this information? And then you can start to look at it in terms of whether it's truth. Like, and it's something that's been going on at the minute, because obviously everyone's panicked about Corona and all this different information that's coming out. Then suddenly it's like, oh, 5G is the problem, or all these various different vaccines. I'm not having a vaccine. No one's putting a vaccine in me. Like,
people are microchips.
Yeah, like, it's just like, just use your fucking common sense and actually think about the information that's put in front of you. And that's the downside of social media, I think, is people have lost the ability to think critically. They just take everything they see as absolute gospel truth. People
seem to take a lot more offense to it, or pick what they want to argue. So if you put like a paragraph up, which I did yesterday, and it was more, well, not about an image, and people started going off on one, I was like, no, you're missing my point. And yeah, I'll explain my point, but it's my fucking Facebook. I'll put what I want, and I would never put stuff that's wrong. I'll just put my opinion or facts. I would never try and put my opinion on someone. Yeah. That's the best way to explain it. But people just going on, I was like, that wasn't what I meant, so why are you taking that from it? This is what I meant. And they're still arguing their point rather than listening. This is what I meant. I even agreed, yeah, your point is great, but this is what I meant.
Yeah.
Another thing where people share stuff and you're just like, fuck's sake, Karen. People believe the Karens are Facebook. And the funny thing is, my mother-in-law's called Karen, and she's one of them. She shared something about a coronavirus drug that was created 7 years ago, but it was for horses. And it was like, that's nothing to do with this COVID. They just called the coronavirus, and you have to explain to her. And it's like, don't share that stuff, because people believe you that it all existed because it was on the back of like Dettol.
Mad, isn't it? Like, I mean, I'm the same. Like, my mum's the same. Like, my mum's like mid-50s, and I was just like, Mum, I'm just gonna take your fucking phone off you. You're pissing me off now. Like, just like, she comes home and she's like, oh, this, and this. I'm just like, you need to stop reading shit on the internet, Mum. Like, it's just full of crap. Like, so like I said, people, and I think honestly that as bad as it sounds, I mean, they're both as bad as each other, but the older generation typically tend to be worse for it, because obviously they've come from a place where what is written down is news and typically is seen as the truth. Yeah. Obviously they've gone onto social media now, and they've got Facebook and everything. They now take everything that's ever written by any sort of news report as gospel truth, whereas we know, like, people who typically have spent a bit more time around social media know that certain sources can't be trusted or are written by knobheads that they're just trying to cause shit, for example. So it's a tough situation. And like I said, this is why you have to be careful on social media, innit?
My favourite one is when people share something and say, this is why you shouldn't believe it. So for argument's sake, the Daily Telegraph, don't believe it because of the Daily Telegraph. But if it argues their point in what they're saying, but it's still from the Daily Telegraph, they'll then share it, and it's like, wait, what? Like, do you want me to listen to this or not? What? And they go, this is by Dr. such and such and body. Oh, do I know he's a fucking doctor? Why is it relevant? Like, unless someone comes out to me and says, this is how it works, this is how I did my background, this is how I did my research, I tested it against this, I tested it against that. I'm like, okay, sweet. But other than that, I don't care who this person who's screenshotted something out of a book. What book is that? I could write a book and just say it's by Dr. Jake Cross. In America, they don't know who I am. I'm Dr. Jake Cross in England. Yeah.
And I think this is something that, I mean, again, we want to talk about the prevalence in jiu-jitsu. Is like, people just follow people blindly. Like, and the certain parts of the community that sort of preach about how high and mighty they are, and they're all tossers. Do you know what I mean? Like, Sam Quinn, a certain individual who like people look up to.
I thought you was calling Sam Quinn a tosser then.
No. So like Sam's situation with his injury, certain people look up to that individual.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he's high and mighty, he's done all this successful, but he's a prick, mate. Like, you've got fucking your arse handed to you off a purple belt, and you've reacted like a prick. Do you know what I mean? Like, so there's people sort of look at these situations. How many stories have you heard about individuals like taking money off people, or like, do you know what I mean? Like, they're just knobheads. They're just trying to get one over somebody. Like, I mean, the Gordon situation with the whole virus, like, don't get me wrong, he's probably the best no-gi grappler on the planet, and probably will end up being probably the greatest of all time if he keeps on going on the run he's on. But I don't take his opinion very well. Do you know what I mean? Like, I respect him when he's on the mat, but off the mat, you're a bit of a knobhead, mate. Like, so...
The John Jones effect.
Yeah, John Jones effect. Like, in the cage, he's an absolute, like, watch everything he does, because chances are it's probably as good as it's going to get. Don't take what he does off the mat, out the cage very well. I wouldn't model my life off him. Do you know what I mean? So,
did you see the Conor McGregor tweets about the GOATs?
No, I've not seen that.
You've seen it, Simon?
Yeah.
So basically, he says that, who did he put as number one? Is it GSP?
Silver.
Oh, Silver as number one. Then himself as number two. Then GSP as number three. And John Jones as number four. And the way he sort of listed these was like, Anderson Silva did it over 2 weight classes. He won a belt in one. He was dominant. Then himself, because he's won 2 belts in 2 different weight classes. Then GSP, because he did the same but was boring, basically. Yeah. And then John Jones, because he's only done it in 1 division. And then Khabib just turned around and was like, you've tapped out in 3 weight divisions. You've never defended a title, even the Cage Warriors belt, which is a great argument. Like, I get he's a prize fighter. He will probably be the greatest of all time at what he does.
Yeah.
But I feel like if he steps into a welterweight division, especially against someone like Usman, he's not got a chance. Obviously, not a fighter's chance. But Usman is legit. What he did to Woodley and stuff, I know people afterwards and before, but I feel like he's purposely done that to try and draw the GSP fight. Yeah, I think GSP will be like, I'm better than you. And obviously, GSP's humble. He's not got an ego. But I think that's the best chance of getting a GSP fight. And obviously piss off Khabib because he wants that fight. Because he's never going to fight Anderson Silva. It's 185. He's never going to fight John Jones. He just wants to piss someone off.
I don't think he's going to get the Khabib fight either, because he needs to prove himself.
I don't think he'll step back in the lightweight division until it's for a title, though. I think it'll always be lightweight against lightweight. So, like, your Cerrone, your Nates, your Masvidals are all 155ers who have moved to 170. 1 for money, and 2 because they don't have to cut weight, and they're still fighting the same people. I think that's what it'll be for the future. I guess the question to you, Andy, if you had to, you put Gordon up there for Jiu-Jitsu. What about MMA? Who would you have as a goal?
I mean, obviously there's a difference between like favourite fighters and GOATs, like greatest of all time.
Both then.
One of my favourite fighters is Rory McDonald. Like, I just think he just epitomises what a fighter is. I think he's just like, I love the way like he turns up, like gets his hand wrapped in a suit. I think it's fucking mint. Like,
yes.
I think he's belting. Like, it's just like he's there for business. Do you know what I mean? I think it's class. Obviously Cowboy as well. Like, Cowboy's like personality, I think he's brilliant. I think it's a detriment, but from like a likable factor, I think he's fantastic. From a greatest of all time perspective, I mean, it's hard to argue with like your GSPs, John Jones. I mean, in terms of actual raw talent, I think Jones is hands down probably the best MMA fighter we'll ever see. Obviously, you've got the arguments that when he might have lost fights and should have has won fights, and obviously his personal situation. But from an actual technical standpoint, I don't think you can argue with Jones. You've got an argument for Khabib, but again, when you're looking at an overall perspective as a fighter, he typically is very one-sided, isn't he, towards the wrestling side of things. But again, his record speaks for itself. You can't really argue with the numbers. GSP obviously again, but again he was a bit boring really. As good as he was a bit dull to watch, and obviously you want a bit of excitement, a bit of an excitement factor. So it's tough to say. I mean, Demetrius Johnson as well. You can't like Mighty Mouse. Like in terms of an all-round fighter, there was nobody better really. Obviously, people's talking about Cejudo now because he's like the most accomplished like combat sport athlete of all time with the Olympic gold medal. But again, he's a bit of a prick, isn't he? So like, I can't really give him too much credit. But like, I mean, as good as he is, but I guess the thing with mixed martial arts is you want to, when it comes to like the question between greatest of all time is what do you judge it off? Are you judging it off like talent and ability, or are you judging it off like a whole package? Because like you said, McGregor's probably the best prize fighter we'll ever see in terms of excitement, but also like from a technical standpoint in terms of sort of fight IQ and actual technical ability. But then again, he's got big flaws in his game compared to like Jones, for example, who is probably technically one of the best MMA fighters of all time, but has got other flaws. So it's a tough one, really. Like it depends what your measuring stick for the greatest of all time is, isn't it? Like Demetrius Johnson defended his title more times than anyone, but he's also tiny. So the justification of is he the greatest MMA fighter or is he the best mixed martial artist, if that makes sense.
It's the boxing adage of like everyone wants to see the heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah.
And I prefer the smaller boxer fights, and I think the same thing. Obviously not the personality, but the GSP Floyd comparison is there because they're not the most entertaining fighters, but they get the job done.
Yeah.
And the Khabib as well. They just get it done. Simple as that. 50-0. Who can argue with that? Obviously GSP lost, but his losses is avenged and he dominates. I think for me, one person that I am watching to think that he could be the best ever, and I think it would be very hard to pass John Jones, is Adesanya. Now, he does annoy me a little bit with some stuff that he comes out with, but he like what he did in the kickboxing record, what he did in the boxing, and now MMA and stuff like that. I feel like he's still hungry, he's still young. He could be unreal. What do you think, Si?
I'd have to agree with Andy with John Jones because like for me John Jones would probably at the moment be probably number one greatest of all time from a technical aspect, from a record aspect, and like look like he had an Olympic wrestler fight and he defeated him twice. Like he's got some really big names on his wins. His only loss is a DQ that he would have won.
Yeah.
GSP, I'd probably put him as a pretty close second over Silva. More because of the damage he took through his career. Like, he was very dominating, but also he didn't take too much damage. And again, his record's got some really big names, but it's... And then Silva's probably up there with like being a very close third, probably arguably tied second with GSP. But I can see Adesanya sort of getting himself up there, but I'd like to see him against a bit more of a thoroughbred wrestler who's gonna try to take him down, and see how he responds in that kind of capacity.
That's one thing the middleweight division does lack is high legit wrestlers. The welterweight division has them. The light heavyweight division has them. Heavyweight to a certain degree, probably a few years ago. I think that's one thing that we love. Like MMA math doesn't work because he beat him or she beat her. Then that it doesn't work, and that's one thing I probably love about the sport. And probably the same into the jiu-jitsu until you get to like the elite levels where someone like Gordon, etc., or Magalhães will probably be 99.99%, but like we've seen on Underground, people like that go against each other because they want to prove and test themselves.
Yeah.
That's what I think anyway.
No, definitely. So like with everyone who's sort of training at home, Andy, before we sort of round this up, have you got any sort of tips or any advice you'd sort of, anybody that's wanting to get back on the mats and maybe got their eyes on some comps towards the end of the year, anything you'd sort of say?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in terms of actual advice for competition, it's hard to make because we don't know when we're going back, do we? So, I mean, like I said, I've changed my mind quite a few times over this isolation about what it is. My main advice is just keep moving. Really, is just keep doing something's always going to be better than nothing in this situation. If you can start getting back under some load, I'd recommend that now, because one of the things that will happen is your body. Without going too much detail, your body you detrain, don't you? Like you're doing anything, your sort of specific adaptation to a certain activity starts to decrease. So when you're training jiu-jitsu, all your joints and things are much more pliable and ready to do something. But you spent the past 10 weeks running and swinging a shit kettlebell around. You know what I mean? Like, so this is the time to sort of start putting a bit. If you've got access to it, try and start putting a bit of load through your tissues. Get it ready for that contact. So start adding a bit more contact conditioning work. So it could be like hitting a punch bag, for example, doing some tumbling, like rolling around a little bit, Granbys, forward rolls, backward rolls. Skipping's good as well, like extensive plyometrics, so like low intensity, higher volume plyometrics, so like jumping, things like that are always going to be good because they're going to get your body ready for that, like that contact again. Start getting back on, like I said, if you can have access to it. Basic strength training, bit of bench, bit of squatting, lunging, hinging, those sort of basic strength training work. And like I said, just get that body and your joints and your muscles ready for impact, really. Because this is one of the problems that we're going to have is people aren't going to, the bodies aren't going to be prepared for contact, and they're going to go in, they're going to be like, I'm going to take it easy, and they get onto their first training session, the coach goes, right, not training for 10 weeks, we're going to do an open mat, and we're going to spar 10 rounds. And the bodies are just going to be like, what the fucking hell are you throwing at me here? So it's just getting that tolerance to load back up, tolerance to contact back in there, and just basically take the sort of capacity that you've built through running and circuits and stuff like that, and just letting your body acclimatise and get used to back to normal training levels. So take your time, increase your volume and your intensity. I mean, I broke it in the last video I broke it down a bit more, how you can sort of increase it using we use like hot, cold and comp ratios. So like building the intensity through your rolls, building back up to sort of the previous levels you were at. But yeah, just take your time, try and get some load through your tissues. Like I said, get used to a bit of contact. I mean, I've got a sneaking suspicion people are going to start returning to the mats soon anyway, based off that information that was released yesterday about contact sports can return. So I think people will take that as a win if they're not already training. But just take your time, just build up the capacity to be in contact, essentially. And I think a big mistake people are going to make is thinking that like their joints and stuff are going to be used to being put into certain stress positions. So just take your time. It's again, the most cliche thing ever is like tap a bit earlier. Just let your body get used to it. You're like the pliability that you have in your joints that you might have built over the years of consistent training might have decreased a little bit. So don't think you can push joints to a certain range you might have done in the past. But yeah, just take your time. Just don't be a dickhead.
Here's a quick question then. Obviously, based on what we heard today, I'm in the same feeling that a lot of people will start to train in some sort of degree now, contact. And I feel like what Boris said yesterday, we'll start to maybe to July, we'll start be able to do more stuff. Obviously, anything could change. But out of a percentage of 100 people or 100% or whatever, how many people do you think would return when they're allowed this that day?
I mean, I reckon about 60% of people are probably already training now.
Wow.
At a guess. I think, yeah, I'd be surprised if people aren't training already.
It seems to be the purple belts and higher, I literally would step on that as soon as possible, and maybe the blue and whites will be more tentative. Also, there's a higher portion of them. That would be the more the people that will, because it's more of a hobby at that point.
Yeah.
Like, is it going to affect me? Like, I've just got to work, I've got kids, blah, blah, blah. Whereas in purple belt and higher, they're trying to achieve something the most, like the coaching, they'll probably make money out of it, so they haven't really got a choice. I feel like that will be straight away, they'll be back.
I think, to be honest,
you want to train now, even though I rarely do it. I miss that because I can, I want to, which is the most backward thing ever, because I could for years. I want to get back on the mats. I'll probably find somewhere local to where I live now. I presume you two will be straight back on?
Oh yeah, straight back. So I think a large percentage of the population will be like getting off their high horses and be back on the fucking mats. I'll be interested to see how many people that have been screaming and shouting from the rooftops for the past 10 weeks will be quickly back onto the mats and scuttling back into the rolls. So it'll be, I'd probably say, probably about 50% are probably training quite, even if they're just training in the backyard with like significant others and stuff like that. I reckon probably 70% will go back quickly within the next sort of 4 weeks. And then it'll be the sort of, like you said, the hobbyists, that 30% upwards, that'll just sort of gradually sort of filter back into the gyms. But who knows, really? It's going to be a big perspective to see what actually happens. Like, do the gyms fill up quickly? Are people a bit more restricted?
Of course.
Definitely. So before we wrap things up, we tend to do like a bit of a quick fire questions round.
Yeah.
Jake, you got your questions?
Yeah, I'll start off like I normally do. Number 1, ketchup or brown sauce?
Ketchup.
What spice at Nando's?
Medium.
Good lad. City break or beach holiday?
Oh, that's tough. I know my mum's just come back. City break.
ADCC or IBJJF?
ADCC.
Xbox or PlayStation?
PlayStation.
Oh, boo! What? That's a rarity. That.
Yes. Xbox through and through. Pride or UFC?
UFC.
Obviously, you said that you did this at the beginning more, but gi or no gi?
Ooh. At the minute, I'd have to say no gi. I go back and forth on that one.
Yeah. What about Galbao or Gordon Ryan?
Oh, Gordon.
Interesting.
Sort of answered it before, but I want a more definitive answer. Silver or GSP?
Silver.
Nice. Takedown or a guard pull?
Guard pull.
Didn't we have that the first time last week?
Yeah.
I didn't think we'd do that again. Brilliant.
Like, I remember I was at a comp once. I was at Grappling Industries. I was sat in this line of people. I was next to the wall, and there was a load of guys, and they were sat there. They were whinging, like fucking mouthing off, like, "Oh, I hate people at pull guard. It's shit. You just stall out." And I'm sat there, and I was like, "How did your match go on?" And they were like, "Oh, we all got beat." And I was just like, "Right, well, I've just pulled guard and sub 3 people, so shut the fuck up." Really.
Amazing. When you eat, do you have your fork in your left hand or your right hand?
Left hand.
Good lad.
Family Guy or Simpsons?
Simpsons.
Submission or KO when you watch MMA?
Oh, KO all day.
It's weird that because everyone's from like a grappling background, more or less, obviously on this, but everyone loves a knockout.
Yeah, everyone. It's like, have you ever watched that? There was like when McGregor was first coming up, and it was like an embedded episode, and they were watching Mark Hunt fight, and Mark Hunt obviously starts this guy, and John Kavanagh was like, "Watch this, he'll thank Jesus," and Mark Hunt thanked Jesus, and they're all like, "Jesus loves knockouts."
Amazing. Go on, Si.
Last one from me. Gonna go iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Last one from me. War or quick finish?
I'm lazy, so quick finish.
Fair enough. Okay, I'll twist it then because Simon did ask this last week and I liked it. A war or a technical bout?
It depends on that one, you know. I'd argue it depends on the situation. So if it's like a show, then a war, because obviously it's more entertaining. Tournament, more technical.
Nice. I agree with that. I think, like you said before, McDonald and Lawler, history books.
Yeah.
But then obviously, it wasn't really a two-way technical, but Bryce Mitchell a few weeks ago,
yeah,
technique on him, probably one of the best I've ever seen. So it really depends on the matchup, but I think I would lean more towards War, but because I'm a promoter, so it helps.
Yeah, MMA. Oh yeah, MMA. You want to see a bloodbath. I think grappling wise, for me, if I was on like Grapple Fest, you want to try and put a show on, so you want it to be a good back and forth. If you want it in a tournament, you need to be a bit more conservative with energy. So technical. I
guess in Jiu-Jitsu, a War is a technical bout because you won't have a bloodbath, obviously, unless it's an accidental headbutt or whatever. But yeah, that's a good point. I guess you're leaning towards the same answer on both.
Yeah.
So we'll wrap it up here, and you've been amazing. Could talk for hours. What if people wanted to get in touch, whether that was on a business level or to watch your career unfold? How can they follow you?
So obviously I'm on social media, so it's Brotherhood Health and Performance on Instagram and Facebook. I do have a personal account, but I don't use it really. I just throw everything on Brotherhood. So yeah, it's on there, and obviously on Facebook, it's Andrew Hardwick, but everything I share is Brotherhood anyway, so you might as well just follow them. But yes, that's pretty much it really. If anyone ever wants to train, I'll either be at AlleyCat or at ASW, so come down and get some rounds in. Like, I like to travel around anyway. I try it, like I said, side with side. I get down to like Everton to see Daz, and then over to Manchester to see Cam quite a bit. So if anyone wants to train, just give me a shout, and I'll well, obviously when we're allowed to, not now.
Anyone you would like to thank? Have you got any sponsors or anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
No, I've got no sponsors, mate. I'm all on my own. But,
all by myself.
It's funny, isn't it? I actually joke about this. Like, I mean, this is not a plug for a sponsorship, but it's funny like how some guys get the sponsorship. It's like, I fought everyone, got all the medals, but no one ever sponsors me. But I quite like that fact. I think that I do it without any free kit. Yeah, obviously, like you coaches like Daz and you have like people who are quite influential in your grappling careers so far. So like Cam and Daz, and then obviously Neil, who runs AlleyCat's obviously been my main coach since I first started. Like training partners, Jack Fletcher, Jamie Shatter, Josh Rumfeld. So they're like the main guys that sort of come with me through everything. Like, we all train together all the time and travel to different gyms and all compete in the same show. So as much as obviously I've put in a lot of the training, them guys have been very influential on the success, and a lot of it wouldn't be possible without them. So so those guys will always get a massive shout out in my eyes.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Si, anything else?
No, thank you for joining us today, mate.
Pleasure, mate. I've enjoyed it, boys.
Free Manx. I've enjoyed it, dude. I think there's a lot more to come from you anyway, so we'll have to get you back on in the future, especially maybe out of lockdown, to see how your mindset of, like you said, it kept on changing, to see if it is how it came out of it, and probably one for both of you is really being PTs and training and coaching and stuff. So yeah, I'll have you back on in the future. But thanks for your time, dude. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, man, enjoyed it. Enjoyed it a lot, boys. And hopefully we'll all see each other at some point when this is all over and done with.
Definitely. Fingers crossed.
Thanks for listening and watching, guys. And we'll see you later in the week.
See you later.